Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Rob. This is DIY Built, and today I'll show you how we built this arms rack for our local range. This is a brand new range that was set up, so we thought we'd build them a nice rack and donate it to the cause here.
But first, I'm gonna need your help. I live up in Canada and our laws around this type of content are pretty restrictive, and I do have to be careful what I say and what I can display on camera. You see, in Canada, owning the items that this rack is designed for is classed as a privilege, not a right like it is in the States. So if you're watching this video in the US and you like this kind of content, help a brother out by liking, sharing, and commenting on the video to help it get some traction. That being said, let's get into it.
Now for this project, I did pick up a sheet of 3/4 inch birch plywood, some wood glue. I happen to have some Gorilla wood glue on hand, a can of clear satin finish, whatever stain you're going to go with. I chose to go with Colonial American, can of contact cement, a roll of edge banding. This one is white birch edge banding, roll of weather strip. This is 3/4 inch weather stripping, same as the plywood, 6 feet of plastic covered chain, couple quick links, 2 eye hooks, and you're going to need some form of rubber matting. So let's start with the cut list and get all the pieces cut.
I will put a complete cut list and material list into the description. However, if you need more detailed instructions, I'll include a link to the full digital plans of this build on my Etsy page.
So what we end up with is 3 at 9.5 inches, 1 at 2 inches, 2 at 11 inches, 2 at 6 inches, and 1 at 4 inches. And now we'll take them over to the miter saw, cut them down to the proper length. Okay, these are our 2 outside pieces. I'm just going to reshape these a little bit. This being the bottom, that being the top. I'll measure up 5 3/4 and 11.5. Do that front and back. At the top end here, we're basically just going to split this board in half. So 5.5. And we'll just grab a straight edge and run that line down. And then we'll intersect with our 11.5 inch line. I want to put a curve on this edge, this being an outside edge that's going to show when you look at the rack. I want to just roll this over, so I'm going to use just a can. You can use a roll of tape or anything like that. We just want to line up our lines, and then we'll just get that slight curve in there so that we can run our edge band tape over and straight up. And while we're rolling things over, we might as well roll over the top end on this as well using the spray can, and that'll kind of finish off the whole thing with that same flow through the whole piece. Now to cut our long line, I'm just going to run it back over to the table saw, set it at 5.5. Cut this down almost to that point. Remember, your blade will be running further, so we want to stop somewhere in here. Then I'll take a jigsaw and just roll that over. And then we'll just transfer that same shape onto our other side leg, using the first one as a template. Each of our buttstock drops are going to be 3 inches wide. I just took a scrap piece from one of the ones we cut off with the miter saw, ripped it down to 3 inches on the table saw. I'm going to put a 30-degree angle on each of these stops. It's going to house 9 of them. So in order to figure this out, what I did first was set the first mark at 5 1/4. Set your speed square on the front face of it. Hold that point. rotate this to 30 degrees right there and put a mark. Then you can take your scrap piece, put it onto that point, draw your line. From there, just put another mark on this side, stand the 3/4 inch plywood board up, make a mark here, and do the same thing. Hold it on the point, bring it to 30 degrees, and just work yourself all the way down the line. And what you'll end up with is 5 1/4 to the first line here, and on the opposite end, 5 1/4 on the last one. And that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I round off this corner, cut this on that 30-degree angle. And again, just gonna use what we have. It's our can of clear, get it set on one of our lines, draw a line there. So we'll end up cutting that. Jigsaw again to roll that over, and this will become our template.
And at the same time, I'll make another template with a scrap piece of plywood to use with my router and a flush trim bit to finalize these shapes into the rack. Over to the miter saw to get all the 30-degree cuts in as deep as I can, then back to the jigsaw to cut out the rounded ends. Now before I router these edges, I'm turning the first 2 buttstock locations into one, and the reason behind this is, as I mentioned before, this rack is for our local range, and when rentals are being used, there's typically only 2 that are unlocked at any given time. So this slot will be allocated for those that are in use. And now we just clamp our router template into each slot and flush up them lines.
All right, now we can go ahead, set this aside, and move on to our barrel supports. Each one of these will center off on a buttstock end. Now I've already done the math on this, so you don't have to do it, and they are as follows. Starting from the left side, we've got 4 1/4, 8 5/8, 12 3/4, 17 1/8, 21 1/2, 25 7/8, 30 3/8, 34 3/4, and finally 39 1/4. And those will be your center marks for all your barrel supports. There's your center line. So we're at 30 degrees on our speed square, centered on our line, and we're going to draw a line straight through. That'll give us our 30 degrees, the same as we did on the bottom plate. And just work your way down the line until you have all 9 barrel slots marked. Just going to use a 2-inch Forstner bit. Measure up 2 3/8. And where each one of those lines intersects on our 30 degree, that's where our center point of our Forstner bit will land right on that intersect. You could do this with a drill. I think a drill press will be a little easier if you have access to one. If you don't, use a sacrificial piece of wood underneath it, and you can use a drill with these as well. Make sure you clamp down your wood piece though. So I'm just going to change this bit out. It's burning a little too much. Wow, still a lot of smoke in the shop from those first 2 holes. I'm gonna open the doors, clean this place up a bit, and we'll do our slots next. And I'll show you how to finish this off so that our barrels slide right in. All right, that's a little bit better, less smoke. We're somewhat cleaned up now and we can keep moving forward. This is really simple. Again, we're just gonna take our speed square. We're gonna set it at 30 degrees. We're gonna line it up with the edge of each of our holes. Make sure your 30 degrees sets up and draw a line. Do the same on this side. Do the same on every one of these. And then we'll just take it over to the miter saw and slice them out. I just want to make sure you watch the blade and don't cut too far or you'll end up coming past the hole here, which won't be a good thing. If you don't feel comfortable doing it on a miter saw like this, you could always use a jigsaw. And I'm just going to take a jigsaw, finish them off. Now she starts to get a little flimsy, so you got to be careful with it until we get it all set and mounted into its location. But basically that's what it looks like. If we take our bottom and then this plate, and you can see that all the centers line up. And with all the pieces cut, now we just go ahead and dry fit everything together, get the two sides set up, get our buttstock into place, our barrel supports up, and then we can just use some long bar clamps and tie it all together. Drop in the lower shelf support, and this is going to be an open shelf, and that's what's required for this one. If I were doing this build for myself and it was going in my own house, I would build a lockable drawer, maybe with a biometric lock, and we'll put in our front stock support piece. Just tighten your clamps a little bit. I want to mark where my screws are going to go while this whole thing is assembled. Our top shelf plate, align down our bottom shelf plate on our barrel support. Then we can go ahead, pre-drill our screw locations. And while we're dry fit it all together here, I like to also just put an X on all the edges that need edge banding. When it comes to edge banding, if you don't do a lot of it, you may not have a clamping system in your shop like I don't. And I don't do a whole lot of it, but when I do 3/4 inch edge banding, all I do is use the miter slot in my table saw. It's a little bit wider than 3/4 of an inch. So I just set it in there, grab a couple hardwood shims. What that does is just secures your piece just enough so that you can get your iron out and run your edge banding without it moving around on you. And this is totally optional. If you don't want to edge band, you can just have the plywood stained up, and it does look okay like that as well.
With all our pieces cut, pre-drilled, edge banded, and sanded down to 220, now is a great time to apply whatever finish you've chosen. I'm applying 2 coats of Colonial American stain, along with 2 coats of clear satin finish.
Once you get it all stained up in your favorite color, you start putting it back together.
Using a number 6 2-inch wood screw, we can go ahead now and secure a lot of the structure together using the holes we pre-drilled earlier. The only area I will not be using screws in is the front buttstock plate, and for this I'll just use a brad nailer and throw some brad nails into that and then fill the holes with a putty that matches the stain.
Now the butt end of the rack is pretty simple, basically just taking 1/4 inch thick weather stripping, fairly dense foam. That's going to go around the outside. We're going to contact cement that into place. Then our rubber pad's going to drop into that slot and be glued in place as well.
And for the rubber, I ended up buying a front door mat for about $8, and this worked absolutely perfect.
Now to glue everything into place, I'm just going to use our trusty old contact cement, and I've just got a couple smaller brushes. Want to apply it both to the weather strip and to the edging of the plywood. Spread it around as even as possible. You can also use a roller for this if you want. You also might want to wear a mask. This is pretty potent stuff. I'll never forget when we were kids, teenagers, I remember we took the headliner out of one of my friend's sports car. I think it was an El Camino. We brought it inside the kitchen of his parents' house. We laid it on the kitchen table, spread it with contact cement, and we were all sitting around and somebody lit a lighter. My gosh, the flames went to the ceiling in an instant burst. And when we thought we had it all out, the ceiling was pitch black. We were just kids and our hearts were racing, and one of us looked over into the living room, and you know, one of those, what are they called, macrame plant holders, those wool plant holders. Well, one of those had a flame crawling up it. Somebody quickly ran over and put it out, and at that point we really didn't know what to do, so we all just left it as it was and went to the arcade. And eventually, you know, all the hell broke loose and we had to take responsibility for what happened and the consequences, but it was something else. So anyhow, moral of the story, this stuff is super flammable, and yeah, don't light a match around it. Lesson learned. And to this day, I don't think any of us will admit lighting the lighter. I know who it was, but he won't admit it. I won't say who it is, and none of us are taking blame for it, so. Well, this is where you just gotta push it into place and get her down as quick as you can. You only got one shot with this. Once it goes in, that's it. That's where she sticks. All right, that's one down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more to go. Now for the top barrel locations, I did pick up a piece of cowhide, kind of a nice color, I think, to go with the rack here. I was going to put the weather strip up there as well, but with the amount of times these things are used at this range, the barrels do get quite hot, and I think it would have just melted the weather stripping, so decided to go with leather. I'm just going to cut this into 3/4 inch strips. Probably going to need a couple strips to finish off the barrel location. They told me at the store the leather doesn't fray, so I'm good that way. I was worried I'd have to fold it over and somehow sew it or something, but apparently leather does not fray. So if anybody's concerned with that, don't be. Seems to be a lot of elasticity to the hide here, so it's best just to cut it lightly, give it 3 or 4 good scores with a sharp knife, and it seems to cut really, really nice.
Again, just put an even layer of contact cement on the wood and the leather and let them tack for about 15 minutes before you put them together.
And then I also picked up these black upholstery pins, and I'm just going to put them on the front of all of these. And finally, just going to do 3 mounting holes across the top section and 3 inside the open shelf at the bottom. Alright, so this rack turned out amazing, a whole lot better than I thought it was going to when I started it. It's a great addition to this range. I would love to fill it up for you, but again, I'm in Canada and there are restrictions up here that we're not allowed to show certain things online, or we potentially get throttled back on views, so I'm not going to do that. If you like this kind of content and you are in the US, do me a favor, like, comment, share the video, help me get some traction on it. And I just want to say, anybody that's been following along for the last 3-4 months that I've been on this woodworking journey, I really appreciate it. And if you want to build a rack like this, I'll throw the link to the plans in the description below. Make sure you check those out, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Peace.